Yo, what's up, guys? Welcome to another Touch Loops video. It's been a minute since we did the last one, but we wanted to make this one pretty special. So we're going to be looking over how to create the sounds of Tyler, the Creator. And more specifically, these sounds are taken from our LA Beats pack. If you're watching this, listening to this, and it's not past mid-August 2021, then we have a sale on where you can grab this pack for a couple of dollars. It's nothing too much. We've got 50% off site-wide, so spin by there. No need for a discount code or a coupon code. Literally just go and all the prices are deducted, so you can grab some sounds. So what we're going to be going over is the sessions. This pack was written by Stu, who makes a lot of our content, and it was done around the time that Igor came out, so it's got that kind of vibe, but it's also referencing Flower Boy as well. So those kind of two, like, for me, the albums that really started to lift Tyler above where he was and kind of come to the mainstream. So we've got 3 tracks to go through, and we'll show you how they're mixed, how they're broken down, and how they're written, a little bit of theory that goes with them. And yeah, let's get started. So let's listen to the first one. Cool. There it was. You may recognize that from the album. Might not. First, on the intro, we've got, as you can see, we're running 2 basses. The idea behind this one is we've got this top one, which is an electric bass, programmed, as you can see, to kind of give it that clarity. And then we're backing it up with an 808 that's been built in Wavetable. So if we have a quick look at our electric bass, as you can see, there's quite a lot of top end. We've got an EQ really pushing 14 dB at 1K. And that's running off of Modo bass. So it looks like we've got an Ernie Ball looking bass man. And then we're going into our favorite Ampeg for extra weight and a little bit of ampy goodness. Probably sounds a little bit false, but I think when you combine it with the sub, it really does allow you to cut through, especially on smaller speakers, which we know can be a problem when using just really big, fat sounding subs. So that's complementing the Rhodes on the way in, if we listen to those 2 together. So really cool cluster chords on the Rhodes. To get that sound, what we've got is we've got Whirly by Arturia, which is not actually a Rhodes, it's a Wurlitzer. It looks like we've got any pedals on. Nope, no pedals on. So just as it comes out of the box with a little bit of vibrato. Then what we've got here, we've got the velocity tool from Ableton. So in Ableton 11, you can actually do this inside the MIDI file. So we can have like a random feature, but this was written in Ableton 10 and then added to 11. So what velocity does is it basically gives us a range of velocities and it kind of varies the notes that are going in. So we get more of a human feel. If we look at the MIDI, it's been played in. So it's kind of erratic. There's a few dodgy notes here and there, but that's kind of the feel. You know, as we know, Tyler is a massive chords guy. So we wanted that live jazz kind of vibe, I suppose. And then the last thing in the chain is Spaced Out, which is a plugin I've come across recently from Baby Audio. And it's wild because it's pretty tricky, I find, to get new plugins that actually do something interesting. There's just so many delays, so many EQs, so many reverbs. But this kind of blends a pile of things all into one. Don't really know what it's doing, but it sounds killer. So if we hear it before and then with. So really nice vintage sound, but with. So it just gives it a little bit more 3D, a little bit more space, and also it's quite ethereal. Like the tail on it is just stunning, which works perfectly with this song. Going down, we've got vocals. So these are taken from our Ethereal Harmonies collection. And what we did was we multi-sampled loads of vocalists and then dropped them into these cool little Ableton racks. So how it works is basically we've got a normal sampled version, but then we've also got an effect version underneath, which we can fade in, if you will, to add like a double layer. So without it, it's dry. And then with the effect, then obviously, as you can see, there's the release time on it. There's a little bit of tape, which is saturation, echo, delay, verb, high pass, low pass, you get the idea. And then on the right-hand side, we've got the same chords being played, but we've actually got a different instrument. So we can now listen to that one. So it's more of an ooh than an o. And then if we bring up the volume, really cool. What we've decided to do is, as you can see, if we had the same thing on both sides, we wouldn't actually have stereo. But by having a slight variation in the two, it means we get super wide stereo field, which sounds lovely. Really, really nice. And a great way to kind of get at vocals and give it that organic touch. So if we listen to everything on the way in. Excellent. Right, drop. As I was saying, double bass line. So as you can see, they're kind of mirroring each other to an extent. The top one's just pulling out these little higher notes, which are just kind of giving it more melody, if you will. And the low one's all about groove and weight. So this low 808-esque bass. And then together. So the subs are just holding down the bottom end. It's pretty simple how it's been made. So as with an 808, normally it's predominantly just a sine wave, realistically, with some pitch. So what we've done is we're running a sine wave in Wavetable as our first oscillator. Then oscillator 2 is this kind of like hybrid square saw, which just gives us some cut so we can actually hear what's going off. So if we get rid of that, standard sine wave, and then with. So super simple, but it just gives it a little bit more cut. And then that combined with the live electric bass means you're going to be hearing on these smaller speakers, which is always an issue when having this kind of music. So drums, sounding big. Okay, so what have we got? First up, our drums. We've got one shots. Traditional, all sounding really nice together. What I'll do is I'll include this session in the blog, so if you spin by to the side, you'll be able to grab that, and we'll throw in some samples and some one shots. So inside the drum rack, we know how that works, all quite obvious. EQ, just rolling off a bit at the bottom end. And then we're running Decapitator just to add some extra grit. Nothing crazy, we can see that. If we take it off. Subtle, a little bit of bite, a little bit of smack. As you can see, the mix is only at 40%, so we're still getting the original transients through, but we're just pushing it a little bit harder. My favorite, virtual tape machine. Extra weight, extra fatness, but at the same time, not going too far because we don't want to distort things too much. We've got a lot of weight and a lot of distortion in that bottom end from the subs, so we're trying to keep our drums, we want them to slap, but at the same time, we want them to be relatively clean. Another EQ on the end just to tidy things up because, as you know, tape machine just generate a lot of sub frequencies. Underneath, we've got an organic loop. Holding down 16ths, rolling off the bottom end. So 250 hertz up just to get rid of any dirt. And then we're running Devil Lock just for a little bit of vibe. As you can see, nothing too much. Just a little bit of attitude. And then on the actual drum group, As always with my mixers, virtual channel, just because it's that analogy vibe, which I always like to go for. And then I've got our favorite distressor plugin. So people sometimes struggle with how to use this because it's a little bit confusing. The way I was taught is that the higher the number, the slower the time, basically. So 10 is the slowest. So we've got a really slow attack, and 0 is the fastest. So we've got a really fast release. I'm wanting the transients to get through, but I'm wanting to clamp down on it and really bring out that tail of the sound. And then we're running a little bit of distortion, 6-1. So it's pretty aggressive, but we're not taking tons off. Without. And with. It's subtle, but I like the little lift. And then we've just got a little bit of help from our knee friend. We've got a tiny bit of 40 hertz and a tiny bit of top end. Not sure where it starts. I think it's like 12, 15K, but it's just enough to brighten up the drums a little bit. As we go down, what we got left? We've got an ARP that's running. Again, Wavetable. Which sounds like it was the chords that were played on the Rhodes and then have been printed into a MIDI file, because you can hear it's following the main harmonic content of what the Rhodes are doing. So if we turn these things off, we can look at the synth first. Single oscillator. 2. So as you can see, they're both kind of a slightly lower position along the wavetable, but there's obviously a lot of manipulation going off and a lot of movement. So if we look at our matrix, oscillator 1 position is being moved around by our LFO. The more we move this up, the further it'll go, basically. And that's pretty much it for Wavetable. Super simple, nothing too exciting. A little bit of unison and shimmer, so 10%. Auto pan just to give us a little bit of left and right. And then auto filter is something we could have done within Wavetable, but sometimes nice to put at the end. As you can see, we've got our LFO on full rate 1 bar. So it's going to be dipping up and down. Lovely, sounding really glossy. And then finally, the classic Tyler lead line. Couple of things going off. Firstly, we're using a Juno. I spoke about this in the blog article I wrote this. Tyler seems to really have a love for classic 60s, 70s psych rock, all the way through to soul and hip hop, and then kind of Stevie Wonder. And a lot of those guys were reaching for early synths. Hence, what we've gone for here is the Tal, which is based on a Juno. Classic synth from the 70s. That's still obviously incredibly popular and annoyingly become incredibly expensive as well. So what we've done is we've reached for the same kind of tools that he'll be reaching for, but obviously we're doing it in the box because it's a little bit easier, isn't it? This is basically the panel from a Juno synth. Pretty simple how it's laid out. We've got the famous Juno chorus on it, which everybody loves. We can have a listen to it. So, short, snappy envelope. The main feature about this that really gives you that kind of vintage sound is portamento. So this is the glide between notes, if you will. As we're playing, we're wanting to slide in, we're wanting to kind of like glide around between them as you would if you were playing this as a solo on a keyboard. That first note is just going to give us that cool little pitch bend. So it kind of sets the synth up low, and then as you go to the next note, it glides up, if you will. So we can listen to that. Really short and really subtle, but a cool little pitch bend idea if you don't have a pitch bend on a piano. So if we turn this off, way less interesting with the glide. Really cool, really vibey. We've also gone into utility, which is giving us some extra width, because why not? And then our EQ is just notching out a little bit in the bottom end, which was getting, 300 hertz. So as we know, 300 can get pretty muddy and pretty dirty. We're just pulling that out because we've got the Rhodes, we've got the subs, we've got the bass, everything's covered in that low end. We just want this for vibe. So it thins it out nicely. And then let's listen to this as a whole. Okay, one last thing that's worth mentioning is on the snares and this little clap, we have reverbs that have been put on them. Now, if you're new to drum rack, basically what the drum rack is a load of samplers all held inside. So as you can see, every single one's got one of these little items, which is the simpler. We can drag samples into it, we can throw them in. Obviously, it's playing what's inside it. What's cool is we can also drag effects onto the actual clip, and that's all it will affect. So as you can see, the reverb comes after the clap. So if we turn up the reverb, we get more, basically. So that's just a nice little internal mixing process, if you will. And it leaves us with what we've got. That's pretty much it. Worth noting, I've got a side chain on the bass, just took it out of the way of the kick. And yeah, that's number one.